Hello, everyone. Thanks to the folks that could join us live, and a later hello to the folks that are new watching this recording. But to all of you, I'm so excited that you're here. It is 7:01, so I'm going to go ahead and get started and try and be respectful of folks' time. And thank you to the folks that are here on time. If more join us, we will gladly bring them in. But I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen. Make sure that's the right tab. There we go. Awesome. Well, I suspect you all know where you are. You're here in the Sleep Soundly workshop. My name's Kimber, for those of you that I may not have had the pleasure of meeting just quite yet. And I am of Moksha, Yoga, and Wellness. So I am a yoga teacher and an Ayurvedic health counselor. And I'm really excited to take different Ayurvedic topics and bring them out into the world. I think once you start on the Ayurvedic journey, it doesn't take much. It just takes a few little tweaks and hacks. You start seeing huge results in your health, and then you're in, then you're sold, then this is just your lifestyle and you want to know more. So my goal with these workshops is to do one a month based on topics that are really top of mind for folks and things that I see my clients come to me just over and over again with, trying to address some of these common issues. And like I said, I'll be totally transparent with you. I just want this to be the gateway drug into an Ayurvedic lifestyle. I want you to have amazing results, to see the ancient wisdom impact your life, and then just want to take it and run with it, hopefully. So, why Ayurveda specifically, though? There is so much holistic health advice out there. If you were to go and Google right now, how can I sleep better? There would be so many different articles with so many different viewpoints and so many different recommendations, some of them even contradictory. So, if you're new to Ayurveda or just want to know why I place so much stock in this, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis over 10 years ago, back in 2011. And if you're unfamiliar with UC, it is chronic inflammation of the lining of your large intestine. So similar to Crohn's is in the small intestine. If you're familiar with that, colitis is the large intestine. But if you don't know either of those, it's kind of just like IBS on steroids. I was tied to the bathroom, couldn't do any of the things that I love to do because I was constantly just having this really urgent need to go to the bathroom. I mean, upwards of a dozen times a day. So that was a really frustrating existence. And my mom, whom I love entirely, I was a junior in college when all this was going down. She's a nurse. So she did what she knew how to do, which was rush me off to the best gastroenterologist that money could buy, who said, "You're going to be on steroids the rest of your life. Don't worry about what it does to your bone density. Don't worry about what it does to your gut microbiome. Just take the steroids. You're going to get yearly colonoscopies. And eventually, no matter what you do, we're probably going to have to surgically remove most or all of your colon." I felt so powerless in that moment, being told what would happen to me, as if I didn't have a say, as if this wasn't my own body, as if I was somehow this participant being drug along in a story that I didn't even feel like I could write. So I'm so grateful to a dear friend of mine in college whose mom was interested in holistic health and was a dietitian. And it just cracked the door open enough into alternative medicine that I realized, oh, there's another way. And through lots of exploration, I tried acupuncture and I tried functional medicine and I tried naturopaths and I tried crazy restrictive diets where I did nothing but eating chicken soup for a month. It worked, but it surely wasn't sustainable. Tried all the things. Ayurveda is what stuck. Ayurveda is what made a difference. Ayurveda is now why I've been in total remission since 2017, zero symptoms, totally off all pharmaceuticals. Unless I'm talking about it like this, I honestly even forget that I have this diagnosis according to Western medicine. The last colonoscopy that I did get, the doctor literally said, I don't know why you have a diagnosis. So Ayurveda is really powerful stuff, but you don't have to have a big, scary diagnosis like I did to benefit from it. Because really what Ayurveda is holistic, looking at you as a whole person. We're not just looking at, okay, you have symptoms in your GI tract. We're just going to focus on your GI tract. We're going to look at all the parts of you and how they play together, every part of your body, mind, and spirit. It's individualized, which is the beauty in Ayurveda. Something that could be medicine for one person could be poison for someone else, and vice versa. So we really look at you as an individual, and we give you diet, sleep, exercise, lifestyle, self-care. It's a one-stop shop for all the things. And it's preventative. So Western medicine's idea is you take a pill that's going to prevent the symptoms, which is going to placate you enough to let you keep going. Ayurveda is not interested in just putting a band-aid on the symptoms. Ayurveda wants to find, address, and heal the root cause, which would prevent those symptoms from ever happening in the first place. So holistic, individualized, preventative health. It comes from ancient India, developed in the Vedic tradition alongside yoga over 4,000 years ago. So there's a reason it's stuck around for so long. It works. It's amazing stuff. So for things that Western medicine doesn't have good answers for, chronic conditions, allergies, these things you're told to just deal with, or the doctor says, I don't know, all your scans look fine. That's where Ayurveda really steps in and shines. And to be clear, I'm not here to just rag on Western medicine. It has a place. If I were to fracture my femur, you best bet I'm going to the emergency room. I'm not going to take some herbs and put a salve on it, you know? So I really think the future of medicine is an integrative approach where Western medicine has its place in acute care, and these more holistic Eastern modalities also have a place in addressing chronic illness, preventing illness, healthcare instead of sick care. So Ayurveda is the bee's knees. What can I say? I try and make converts wherever I go. I just want to scream from the mountaintops about how amazing this stuff is. So that's that. So that's why we should care about Ayurveda. But let's look at you for a moment, because I know exactly what you're going to do. And I say this with love and reverence. I've seen enough now to know you're going to fall in one of two camps. The first camp is you're really excited. You're going to take copious notes. You're going to be the one that goes back and watches this recording and looks over the slides and gets super excited. And you're going to try and change everything all at once. Of the 14 or so recommendations that I make tonight, you're going to try and do all of them tomorrow perfectly. According to Ayurveda, we'd say that this might be a little bit of Pitta dosha. If you're familiar with Ayurveda at all, you might lead with Pitta in your constitution. You have the best of intentions. You want to be the gold star student. You want to do it all. The problem with doing it all is then you burn out, and then you get frustrated and feel guilty with yourself that you can't keep up this frantic pace. You can't do every single one of the things perfectly. So then you do none of them. You burn out. If you can't do it all, you do nothing. In the end, not super helpful. Ayurveda plays it a long game. That's camp A. Camp B, you also have the best of intentions. You took this workshop. Maybe you've consumed some more of my content. Maybe you've read some articles and done some research on Ayurveda. You're like, I think that could really help me. I think I could really get something out of that. You go through the workshop, maybe you jot some things down, maybe some of the recommendations seem really doable to you, and you're like, oh yeah, man, I should try that. The workshop ends, nothing happens. A week passes, you say, oh yeah, that workshop, I should order that thing that she talked about, that oil, I should try this strategy, oh, I should really do that. Nothing happens. And we keep going on and on and on until the workshop fades from your memory. And a few months from now, you're back to Googling, oh my gosh, why can't I sleep at night? Also not helpful. So I call out these two camps lovingly because I see them so often, and I invite you to the middle way. You don't have to do it all, but you certainly don't want to be the person that does nothing. Can you pick a few things from tonight that speak to you, that feel like you could actually implement them, that could be sustainable to you in your life and your practice, and do those? Let it build over time. Consistency is the name of the game here. We're not trying to make a huge, big change overnight. Consistency will serve you in the long run, building habits that you can maintain and stick to. If you need help building habits, that's a different workshop that I offer. Maybe I'll link that in the follow-up information as well. So say that with love. Call yourself out if you fall into one of those two camps. So here's a little bit of an outline of how our time together this evening will work. Really just three big chunks. Where we'll start is just understanding, how does Ayurveda categorize insomnia, sleep issues? How does it view that? That really just kind of lets us put our Ayurveda glasses on and start to understand from this Eastern perspective, what does imbalance mean? What does disease look like? It's very different from the Western medicine model, but this will just set the stage, give you the container to start looking at this from an Ayurvedic lens. Then we'll go into, okay, it's tonight, for example, it's 2 a.m. You can't sleep. You just want something just to get back to sleep. You have a big day tomorrow. You're worried about it. What are some things you can do in the moment to get some relief when you're frustrated and need rest and need that restorative, beautiful quality that good sleep gives us? Then lastly, because this is Ayurveda, we're looking at addressing the root cause, not just putting Band-Aids on the symptoms. We'll say, okay, how can we prevent these symptoms from ever showing up? What's the imbalance here that's causing poor sleep, lack of sleep, insomnia to be the symptom? Once we start to treat and address that, then the symptoms become a lot less frequent or maybe don't even occur at all. And that's like gold standard where I want you to be. So kind of step 0, we're setting the stage. Step 1 is the strategies that you'll use more regularly now. Then step 2 is the long game. How do we prevent this from ever happening in the first place? Any questions before we get started? Okay, awesome. And y'all feel free to use the raise hand button or, oh my gosh, there's a chat. Okay, sweet. Saying not yet. Great, thanks, Ian. Okay. Step 0, set the stage. What does it mean from an Ayurvedic perspective to be struggling to sleep well, fall asleep, stay asleep, wake up feeling rested? This is kind of like Ayurveda 101, down and dirty understanding of how Ayurveda views health and imbalance. So, in Ayurveda, there are 3 doshas. These doshas, D-O-S-H-A, you can kind of view as like dominant energy types, or you can also think of them as these building forces that create us and the world around us. So we all have all 3 of these doshas within us in different unique ratios. These doshas also, exist out in the world. So there's 2 of the 3 that can be the primary cause of imbalance that would then lead to sleep issues. So I'll go over each one individually, and I have a lot more resources about the doshas. I just don't want to spend all our time on it tonight, so this is just very intro level, but if you're interested, let me know. I can send you way, way, way more about the doshas. So the first one, this dominant energy type, this building block of us, is called Vata dosha. It's that first bullet point, V-A-T-A. Vata is based in the elements of air and ether. And there's more Vata in our environment this time of year. As we're into fall, even as we start transitioning towards winter, lots of air and ether element. It might feel dry, cold, rough, overly mobile. Because it's based in the air and ether elements, you can kind of imagine the energy just dissipates. It just goes up and out. There's not this grounded, rooted, solid, steady feeling. Vata is the opposite. It's like a little bit chaotic, a little bit inconsistent, going all the places all the time. A person that has a lot of Vata dosha in their constitution, they might be a really tall or a really small frame. They might be just naturally kind of this string bean with big knobby joints, always moving, tapping their foot, hard to sit still, high energy, creative, spontaneous, but a little hard to pin down. Sometimes lacks follow through, sometimes just on to the next thing. They might always be cold. And yeah, they're prone to more of this feeling of fear, racing thoughts, anxiety, because there's not that natural groundedness to them. So when we think about any of the doshas, I like to think of them as a bucket. And like I said, we all have all three doshas in us. So we all have these three buckets that just naturally are filled to different levels. Some people naturally exist with their vata bucket like 85% full. That is just how they exist in the world. Or for me, I have the least amount of vata of the three buckets. So my vata bucket, my sweet spot is like 20% full in that bucket. This is where Ayurveda is individualized. We talk about balancing the doshas. Balancing the dosha doesn't mean you need to empty your bucket. These doshas are very necessary and they all perform really important functions for us. Vata performs all the functions of movement in our body. So imagine if we didn't have the ability to move. We need all the doshas. So we're not trying to get rid of them. We're also not trying to get all of our buckets the same. Because the beauty in Ayurveda and this individualized science is everyone's buckets naturally exist at just different levels. So when we talk about health for you, we talk about getting your buckets back to that natural state, the way your buckets were born to be. And that's going to be different than my buckets. That's going to be different than everybody else's buckets. So the problem comes in, we say we have an imbalanced dosha in Ayurveda when one of your buckets starts to overflow. So where you might start seeing symptoms like dry, creaky, cracky joints, dry scalp, dry skin, anxiety, insomnia, gas, bloating, constipation. That's how you know this vata bucket is overflowing. That's the point of imbalance. Too much of a good thing. Doesn't matter if your vata bucket starts at 20%. Doesn't matter if your vata bucket starts at 85%. Everybody has this point where their bucket starts to overflow. Too much, too much, too much. That's when we need to come back to balance. So vata type sleep issues, how we can identify that it's the vata bucket in particular that's overflowing, might feel more like anxiety and fear. Might also be between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m. that you're waking up. Might be this restless, this movement quality. You're scattered, you're all over the place. There's not that grounded, steady quality. The other thing about vata is it's really inconsistent. So if you feel like you just can't quite put a finger, you can't quite figure out the pattern in any of your sleep stuff, could also be vata as well. So that's one of the doshas, and honestly the more common one that can lead to sleep issues, especially this time of year. The other dosha that could be out of balance and causing sleep issues is pitta dosha. So pitta is based in the elements of fire and water. But for purposes of tonight, you can just think of fire, because it's kind of hard to conceptualize the fire and water together. So folks that have a lot of pitta naturally, that just exist with a really high pitta bucket, pitta is the force of transformation. So these folks are driven, they're naturally really hard workers, they're the get stuff done kind of people. They might be really competitive, really critical, workaholic. They pour themselves into whatever they're doing and try and do it really, really well. Naturally leaders, naturally decisive. It's easier for their bodies to put on muscle, but too much of a good thing, too much fire, you get redness, skin rashes, eczema, you get acid reflux, you get inflammation in the joints, you get soft stools, diarrhea, yellow stools, acidy, indigestion in the stomach. Anything where there's too much fire in the brain, this is just hyper competitive, really obsessed with work, quick to judge themselves and others, quick to anger, quick to frustrate, just fire coming up into the head. So that means our pitta bucket is overflowing. And this can also cause sleep issues, but they'll show up a little bit differently. So if it's your pitta bucket overflowing that's causing your sleep issues, this might feel like, not that I'm anxious, not that I'm afraid, I just can't turn my mind off. I'm thinking about work projects. I'm thinking about all the things I have to do the next day. I'm just thinking about that performance, that transformation, that making stuff happen in the world. You're like laying in bed solving world hunger is pitta insomnia. So generally I find with folks, this can be like thinking about work, thinking about stress, thinking about things they need to figure out that they wish they could do more about. This also might mean it's harder to fall asleep, or you're waking up in that 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. range potentially as well. So those are the two general kind of ways that we can view sleep issues according to Ayurveda. So maybe you see a little bit of one of those in you, or you see both of those in you. The other one, which it's really rare that folks experiencing this ever even reach out, but I'll just mention it briefly. The other dosha, kapha, which is based in the elements of earth and water, which is this heavy, stable, grounded quality. Sleeping is a kapha person's superpower. If a person has the highest filled bucket in kapha, they're gonna like be able to fall asleep so easy, and 10 hours of sleep is like nothing to them. When we look at sleep issues with kapha folks, it's generally too much sleep. Getting up early in the morning is like pulling teeth for them, and they want to take like an hour and a half nap in the middle of the day. So kapha folks, it's generally too much of a good thing, but generally those folks aren't seeing any reason to come find a solution to that. But if that's you, let me know. We can talk more about it. So that's a general overview of the doshas, how Ayurveda would view our sleep issues. And then I think it's helpful to just understand Ayurveda's general view on how we address imbalances. Once we identify which of these three buckets might be overflowing, how do we know from an Ayurvedic lens what to do about it? And it's so simple. Ayurveda is so intuitive. Once you get into it, it just feels like you're remembering things you've always known. It's like you're just reawakening the wisdom of your body and your cells, which I hope is your experience as well. So you can really just surmise it in one simple sentence. Like increases like, balance with the opposite. What this means in practical terms is if we have one of these buckets that's overflowing, we have an imbalance in one of the doshas, too much of a good thing, that level is not at the level of health, the bucket is overflowing like we see in this picture. Then we're experiencing like increases like. When that imbalance has started, it's like a boulder rolling down a hill. That boulder is just going to keep rolling down the hill. It's going to keep gathering momentum and speed, and gravity is doing its work. It's a whole lot easier for that boulder to keep going the trajectory that it was already going. So imbalance begets more imbalance. You might even be drawn to things and have craving for things that are going to keep that boulder rolling down the hill in the wrong direction. So, for example, if you heard me talk about Vata dosha and you're like, oh my gosh, that's totally me. Tell me about how much you love your dry, crispy snacks. Yeah, You like the things that keep the boulder rolling down the hill. If you're the Pitta person, tell me about how much you love working out. Tell me about how you like to choose the hard way. Tell me about how much you like spicy food. Don't take it personally. These are just the doshas and they show up in these predictable ways sometimes. So the boulder's rolling down the hill. What do we have to do? Let me get to the chat here. Both, yeah. And maybe that's your constitution then. Maybe you lead with Vata and Pitta. I could see that in you, Leanne, for sure. So if the boulder's rolling down the hill and imbalance is just going to keep getting more imbalance, we have to stop the cycle. We balance with the opposite. So the second part of this tenet is we balance with the opposite. And the way I like to visualize that is if a pendulum is swung all the way to one side, over here in our imbalance, we're going to introduce the opposite qualities. We're going to get that pendulum to swing all the way to the other way. We're not going to stay there, but the hope is if you had this much energy where you were all the way over here, you need equal amounts of energy in the opposite direction, and that pendulum can settle right back in the middle where it needs to be. So to stop the boulder from rolling down the hill, we introduce the opposite qualities, which is going to stop the momentum, stop the progress of the boulder, say, we want this boulder to roll in a different direction. Which is always hardest in the beginning because you're fighting against all of that momentum that has been built up by that boulder, but it can be done. It's just the simplest, easiest way to understand what does it mean to be healthy according to Ayurveda? What does it mean to be in balance? So let me know if you have any questions about any of that. That was a lot of Ayurveda in a very short amount of time. Okay. Chat. All good. Wonderful. Thank you. So next, there we go. Step 1. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty. My Pitta folks, they're the ones that are like, yes, tell me what to do. I will do the things. Remember, don't have to do all the things. I'm giving a whole lot of recommendations. Pick the ones that speak to you. Pick the ones that feel doable, actually consistently able to implement and work from there. So I'll go into all of these more in depth. Feel free to let me know what questions you have. Like I said, don't have to do it all. So in the moment, this is like 2 a.m. tonight. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't sleep again. This is so frustrating. What can I do right now? The first half of this list is things you could do in the middle of the night. The second half of this list is things you could do before you go to bed. If you're worried you're not going to be able to sleep that night, or just things you want to make part of your daily routine, wind down, evening bed routine. So the first ones are pranayama. So pranayama, these are yogic breathing techniques is the really simple way to think about those things. But according to Ayurveda, these breathing techniques can be super healing because pranayama, let's look at that word. The first part of it is prana, energy, life force. We can utilize prana to send where it's needed to help restore balance. We can use our own energy to get us back to center. And these are great because you can literally be lying in bed and do these. You don't need anything at all. So the first pranayama is called Anuloma Viloma. This is a version of alternate nostril breath. So if you've practiced this before, you might be familiar, but if not, I'll give a little lowdown. So you'll take your right hand, you'll fold down your first finger and your middle finger. What we'll be using are the thumb and the ring finger. So I don't have a ton of flexibility. My ring finger kind of goes down when I put these first two fingers down. But for some people, this is really easy to just press their fingers into their palm. There we go. If that's you, go for it. If not, these first two fingers can go to the third eye. So either press down to the palm or up to the third eye, because these are the two fingers we'll need. So your thumb hovers outside your right nostril. Your ring finger hovers outside your left nostril. You'll block the right nostril with your thumb. So you're just going to inhale only through the left nostril. At the end of your inhale, you're going to block the left nostril with the ring finger. Exhale only through the right nostril. Then don't switch. Inhale through the right. Block off the right. Exhale through the left. Don't switch. Inhale through the left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Exhale left. You'd continue on in this way. This is a really great pranayama for balancing vata dosha. And if you feel like sleep issues are a lot of this just like mental anxiety, fear, ungroundedness, this is a really good one. So you could do between 7 and 17 rounds of this. And in true Anuloma Viloma, you'd have more of like a forceful breath. It'd be a little bit more of like a detoxifying breath. You can do that if you'd like, maybe first thing in the morning or before you go to bed. But if you're lying in bed actively trying to go to sleep, that one might be a little more too invigorating to just getting snarl over myself. So I'd recommend if you're lying in bed, just do a regular passive inhale, exhale, nothing crazy. So that one's a really great one you can do in bed. The other one that's really great in bed, this one depends a little bit on if you sleep alone or if you share a bed with someone, because this one you'll actually make noise. But Brahmari, bee's breath. This one is great for Vata and Pitta. It's going to take excess emotions and clear them from the head. It's going to activate your vagus nerves, hopefully give you a sense of calmness and safety and serenity. I've given this to clients before who have a lot of anxiety flying, and it works really well. This is like great to help regulate the nervous system in acute moments at any point in your life. So if you want to do this fully, it's kind of fun you're trying to block off your sense organs with your hands. So I'll teach you how you do that with your hands. But also if you're like out in public at the grocery store and want to use this, you don't have to do the hand thing to get the full effect. You don't have to put on the Batman mask with your hands. But I'll show it to you just so you know. So you'll take your pointer fingers together, right there at that third eye again. Your ring fingers are just pressing really gently into the corner of your eyes. I guess that's your middle finger, sorry, corner of your eyes. Your ring fingers are resting on the sides of your nostrils. You don't want to obstruct your breathing at all, but just resting here. And then really importantly, your thumbs are going over this tiny little flap at the front of your ear. So once you get your hands set up, you do actually want to press down into your thumbs, closing off your ears. You can place some really gentle pressure in the corner of your eyes. You're just trying to kind of block all the senses and just bring it all internal. But the ears are the most important part. So for this one, you'll inhale normally through the nose. As you exhale, you'll just simply hum. The entire length of your exhale, it's going to make your exhale really long, which is a really great help for your nervous system to get out of that dysregulated state. So I'll just show you. Inhaling normally, making sure my ears are blocked off. I'm just going to exhale and hum. And you take another inhale through the nose, you would hum the entire length of your exhale again. So the nice part of closing off your little ear flaps there is then that hum kind of reverberates in your entire skull, which is really cool. You're just like bathing yourself in your own healing frequencies. It's beautiful. Like I said, you're out in the grocery store, you're on an airplane, you don't want to put on your Batman mask. You can just inhale and hum. Super simple, super, super simple. So depending on, yeah, your sleeping arrangements, if you sleep with another person in the same bed, if they are a heavy sleeper, maybe you can get away with it. Maybe you go sit on a meditation cushion or on the couch and practice a few rounds of that breath. Up to you. So 2 really great pranayamas you can do in the moment. The next one, more fancy Sanskrit words, abhyanga. This means Ayurvedic oil self-massage. This is, gosh, one of my favorite Ayurveda self-care treats, but it also can be really healing and medicinal. So we'll talk on the next slide how you can do it for the full body, but especially for the feet is what we're thinking about in regards to sleep. So remember, especially with Vata, the energy kind of dissipates. It kind of is up and out because there's not this grounded, rooted feeling. So bringing the energy back down, finding that grounded, rooted place is really what this is after. So ideally, if you can warm up the oil, this is going to be much more effective. It's going to feel much better. You can use sunflower, sesame is really great for Vata. If you feel like you leaned more towards the Pitta side, that fiery workaholicness, coconut oil is really nice. Also, Banyan Botanicals has a really nice I Sleep Soundly oil, which I link to later. Banyan Botanicals is my favorite supplier of Ayurvedic products. They're amazing. And that's got some Ayurvedic herbs infused into it, which make it even more potent. So it's really just a beautiful little self-care practice. You'll warm up some oil. My feet. You literally just rub a little bit of oil all over your feet. Just show your feet some love. Hopefully the oil is warm. You can warm it up in just a little pot of water on the stove. I have a baby bottle warmer that lives in my bathroom, even though I don't have children. You can warm up just tea water hot, a mug, and then stick your bottle of oil in that coffee mug and keep it warm. But the warm oil, especially on the feet, just moving the energy down, reconnected to that grounding feeling. So nice. So then you'll just want to throw on a pair of socks afterwards because we don't want to wash off the oil. So have an old pair of socks that are your dedicated oil socks. Throw them on so you don't get your sheets all a mess and your feet don't get cold during the night having that oil on there. And it's not a lot of oil either. You know, this is like maybe a tablespoon, maybe. You don't want to be super greasy gross. You want to be able to rub it in and have your skin absorb most of that oil. So that's a beautiful thing you can do in the middle of the night. It can also be part of your before bed wind down practices. Just super helpful. Draw the energy down. And I linked a video here actually from Banyan Botanicals that goes over how to do this process. And it's just really lovely. I say all the time, Ayurveda is weird until it's not. You're like, why are we putting oil in all these orifices? Why are we drinking these weird concoctions? Why are we not allowed to drink ice water? Ayurveda is weird until you realize that it works, and then all of a sudden it's not so weird anymore. Ayurveda has been around for 4,000 years because it works, but it's certainly not gotten popular because a lot of its recommendations are kind of counterculture. They're not what you're going to find in Cosmos quick tips. So try it, even if it sounds crazy. Most folks that I recommend it to really enjoy it and think it's really lovely. So give it a shot. Certainly won't hurt anything. So lastly, as far as things you can do just in the moment, immediately need to just get back to sleep. I'm sure if you've ever had sleep problems in your life, which is why you're here, you've heard don't have technology in the bedroom. You know that whole dog and pony show. Actually, going to say in this case, YouTube can be your friend. There's some really great sleep meditations, some binaural beats. You can also YouTube Yoga Nidra, things that have this really soft, guided sound, whether it's someone talking or not, kind of gives the brain something to do. If the brain is awake because it doesn't have a task or a goal and it feels like it's activated and needs to be doing something, this gives the brain something to do, which sometimes can actually be just enough to let you find sleep again. So, yeah, you can find your favorites. There's all sorts of amazing things out there. Just check them all out. Also, Insight Timer is a really great meditation app. It's free, and they also have a lot of guided sleep meditations and things like that. So, I didn't want to clutter this with a bunch of recommendations. Just find one that you like and give it a shot and see what happens, you know? Because if you're already up in the middle of the night, certainly grabbing your phone and scrolling social media probably isn't going to help the situation. But if you can find a way to have some sort of positive influence on your senses, it's worth a shot. It's also worth saying, too, if it's a vata type sleep issue, so remember that's the first one we talked about, the air and ether, anxiety, fear, restlessness. Vata type folks are going to be more sensitive to sound. So you can think about this with your sleep hygiene. Maybe you need to sleep with not earbuds, but earplugs in. I've had folks that have taken cotton balls and dipped them in that same warm oil they do for their Ayurveda massage and then sleep with those cotton balls of warm oil in their ears. Pitta type folks, so that being said, keep this at a really low volume, and if you're more of a Vata type, notice if this is making things worse or if this is making things better. For Pitta folks, we're less concerned about sound, so these may work better for them. Pitta folks are going to be more sensitive to light. It's because one of the organs in the body that Pitta resides in is the eyes. One of the organs in the body that Vata resides in is the ears. So Pitta folks, if you're more worried about light, think about that when you're thinking about your sleep hygiene. A really dark room, blackout curtains, no night lights, no small electronic lights. Can you get your room as dark as possible is going to be helpful for Pitta folks in particular. So now we'll move into some things that you could do kind of in the evening as you're getting ready for bed if you're worried you might not sleep all that night, or just things that you could make part of your routine that also can work really well. So the first one is golden milk. This is a traditional Ayurvedic recipe that's gotten popular recently in the holistic health world. Us Ayurveda folks are just going to be hipster about everything. Like, oh, you want to talk to us about ashwagandha? Been talking about ashwagandha for 6 years, Pam. Golden milk is one of them. So it says milk. It does not have to be whole cow's milk. It can also be goat's milk, almond milk, oat milk. You're choosing. I will just say try and not get one that's full of artificial sweeteners and a bunch of additives. Get an unsweetened version. But it really is true, the old wives' tale, warm milk, very calming to the nervous system. I don't know, maybe there's a link there to our baby brains and nursing and getting our mother's milk. Hard to say. But this link here goes to a recipe that I typed up, but the milk is called golden because essentially there's a lot of turmeric in it. Super great anti-inflammatory spice. Really easily available at grocery stores nowadays. You can just get the powdered form, or if you're super excited, you can get turmeric root and grate some fresh turmeric root. Beware, it is bright yellowy orange and it stains. It's been used by traditional societies as a dye for thousands of years. So just watch out with where it goes. Wipe it up quickly if you spill it on the counters. It won't stain like your mugs though. You don't have to worry about that, but just clothing as where I find it. I have a white porcelain sink. It's got turmeric stains in it, just how it goes. But that recipe, you also add a little bit of cardamom is really nice. I add a little bit of coconut oil as a little bit of a fat source. And there's also some research to suggest that turmeric, to actually be absorbed and efficient in our bodies, that active, you can view it as like the active ingredient in the turmeric, the curcumin. If you add a tiny bit of black pepper, a ratio of like 12 parts turmeric to 1 part black pepper, so a tiny little bit, that our bodies actually will absorb that turmeric more effectively. So I add a tiny little pinch of black pepper into mine and then sweeten it with maple syrup, dates, honey. I found maple syrup is nice because it's easiest to dissolve in this nice warm drink. So you're getting a lot of bang for your buck here. You're getting the warm milk, you're calming your nervous system, great little before bed tonic. You're getting the anti-inflammatory properties of turmeric. Turmeric, yeah, is just like on Ayurveda's all-star list. It's incredible, all the things that turmeric can do. And unless you cook a lot of Indian food, you generally aren't going to have reason to get a lot of it in your diet. So this is a really easy way to just increase your turmeric intake, which we could all benefit from. So you can just make a cup of this an hour or so before bed. Try that out, see how it goes. It's also just a nice treat. Another one, it's not going to hurt anything. So the next one, if you've been working through sleep issues, I'm sure you've heard about chamomile tea or valerian root. These are just 2 really great tea mixes that I enjoy. The first one, the Good Night Sleep Tea, comes from the Ayurvedic Institute, which is where I did my most recent Ayurvedic training. They just relocated to Asheville. I think if you're local, you can get the Good Night Sleep Tea at the Asheville Yoga Center. I believe they carry it, but you can also just order it online. It comes in a nice little powder. It's a really great combination of herbs. The Ayurvedic Institute's herb room is kind of world renowned. Or the second one, the Mellow Mind tea. This one comes from Banyan Botanicals, that supplier of Ayurvedic products that I talked about that are just amazing. And the Mellow Mind is actually a spinoff of one of the really common teas in Ayurveda called CCF, cumin, coriander, fennel. And CCF is a really great digestive aid. So with this Mellow Mind tea, you're getting a benefit of your boosting your digestive capacity, your digestive fire, or your Agni, as we talk about in Ayurveda, while also getting some of these calming, nerve tonic, relaxing herbs all as well. So if you also have digestive issues, Ayurveda is based on the idea that digestion is the root of all health. So kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. So this next one, true Ayurveda, so cool and weird. Nutmeg and ghee lepa. So essentially, you're going to mix equal parts nutmeg, just the spice ground up, and ghee or clarified butter. Ayurveda loves ghee. We use it for cooking, we use it for medications, we use it for facial products. So much ghee. It's absolutely great. Just get a high quality ghee, get it from a good source, get a good one. It's definitely worth it, both just in taste and potency of its medicinal properties. But it is pretty popular now. You can get it at Whole Foods, Trader Joe's even has one. But you can also order that online from the Ayurvedic Institute or Banyan Botanicals if you want like really top-notch good ghee. You can also make it yourself, which I've done and is a pain, but is really cool to have some ghee that you made yourself at the end of it. So weigh whatever is important to you. So you're going to mix equal parts nutmeg and ghee, making this powdered buttery concoction, taking about half a teaspoon total, so that's about a 1/4 teaspoon nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon ghee, and just rubbing it on your forehead. This is like an hour before bed, and just letting it sit for like 15, 20, 30 minutes. This is one of those, I just say it's true Ayurveda. You're like, You're wanting me to rub nutmeg on my forehead." And I'm like, "Yes, and it's gonna be great." So, give it a shot, see what happens. Properties of nutmeg can be a little bit cooling, so really helpful for pitta. The nutmeg is also really helpful if you have like migraines, which is another pitta imbalance. Just all that fiery heat coming up to the head. Want to give that heat a place to go. Want to dispel some of the excess heat from the head. So, yeah, a fun one to walk around the house and show your family, and maybe your kids will think it's cool and want to do it with you. Who knows? But yeah, give it a shot. The last one, there are plenty of supplements on the market talking about sleep, but there's just a couple that I chose to mention tonight because the way I view it, supplements are kind of just Western medicine regurgitated. We've become so used to, well, I'll just take a pill and it will fix it. I think used appropriately, supplements can be helpful, but we don't want to rely on them as a cure-all without doing what Ayurveda seeks to do, addressing the root cause, preventing the imbalance in the first place. So that's why I'm hesitant to recommend just broad-scale supplementation unless you have a really strong understanding of let's fix the cause too. But I mentioned magnesium because it's really great for folks with vata issues, the air and ether, dry, spacey, anxious type stuff. Can help with sleep, but also can help with regular bowel movements, which vata folks generally can have struggles with. Having a good bowel movement every day, magnesium can help trigger that. It's also really great for muscle recovery. If you have done a hard workout and you're really, really sore, magnesium is your friend. I mean, it's the same stuff that's in an Epsom salt bath. That magnesium is what's getting into the muscles and helping move the lactic acid out. So another super, super great one. Okay, any questions on these first few recommendations? What to do when you're like in the thick of it and like, oh my God, I just want to go to sleep. It's also worth throwing out there that this is Ayurveda. We're playing the long game. It's not going to be the same as Western medicine where you take an ibuprofen and all of a sudden your pain is gone. So I think sometimes folks have unrealistic expectations for the Ayurvedic recommendations. Sure, it might take longer to get your relief, but your relief will be lasting because we're removing the cause. Whereas Western medicine has its used to, I'm going to feel better immediately, but it's just going to keep happening. So stick it out. None of these are miracle cures, but they'll hopefully give you some relief in the moment. And then the next two slides are talking about, okay, what's the long game? How do we stop this from happening? Which is real Ayurveda. Okay. Next, here we go. Here we get into the, okay, how about we just never have sleep issues? How do we stop that from ever being a thing I have to experience? This is where the rubber hits the road. Some of these you might know about, but hopefully a lot of these are new to you, new Ayurvedic knowledge that you can implement. Same disclaimer as before, you don't have to do them all. Pick the ones that call to you. Trust your body's intuition, trust your body's innate wisdom. Your body knows what you need if we get quiet enough to listen. Also, don't do it all. Pick a couple. Consistency, consistency, consistency. So the first one, 2 different herbal infused oils, Brahmi and Bringaraj. The link here goes to a Banyan botanical product called I Sleep Soundly oil, which does have these herbs in it and a few other ones. That's really, really nice. But if you just wanted the Brahmi or Bringaraj, you can do those as well. Brahmi is an Ayurvedic herb renowned for its stress reduction qualities, has a really calming effect on the mind, really grounding, which is really nice. Bringaraj also has really great qualities for the hair loss, receding hairline, early gray. Bringaraj is super great for that. So when we talk about rubbing oil, we talked about doing it on the feet. You can also do this on the scalp. because a lot of sleep stuff, it's coming from what's between our ears a lot of the time. So can we add some of that grounding, relaxing quality to the scalp? Obviously, if you're rubbing oil onto your head and scalp, can get messy. So I just put a towel out over my pillowcase and sleep on a towel. I have dedicated oil towels in my house. Ayurveda loves oil, so you just get used to oily towels being everywhere. Don't put them in the dryer because they might start on fire. But yes, you can also just like wrap your head in something. This also doesn't have to be a before bed one. This could be a just like self-care Sunday morning, want to do the whole oily thing, want to add the scalp and the hair into it, and then maybe you wash your hair afterwards. But pro tip, if you're trying to get the oil out, add the shampoo right to your oily hair before you wet it. Oil and water don't mix. So if you try and wet your head and then add your shampoo, you're fighting an uphill battle. If you can just put the shampoo right onto the oil, it's going to start to break down that oil much, much, much more easily. It feels super weird to put shampoo on dry hair, but it will save you, I promise. So I'm not sure why I put that as number one separate from the Abhyanga. It's a weird order there, but the next two are also about oil, so we'll keep on the oil train. Thanks for letting me know, Leanne. So the second one is Nasya oil. So remember how I said Ayurveda has an oil for every orifice? This is a great example. Nasya is oiling of the nasal cavity and the sinuses. So it's great for all sorts of imbalances, collarbones up, migraines, insomnia, prevention of congestion, prevention of sinus infections, stress, all sorts of stuff. This is another one where it's weird until it's not. You're like, you're wanting me to snort oil? And I'm like, yes, and it's amazing. I promise. It's weird until it's not. So the first link is to where you can buy the oil from Banyan Botanicals. The 2A is a how-to video that I made actually just this week when I was in Florida doing Nasya because I was really dry and scratchy and I was like, oh, give me the oil. So essentially, you want this to go into your sinuses and not down your throat. If the oil goes down your throat, you're going to hate this and you're never going to want to do it again. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So essentially, you want to be like laid off the side of a bed or a couch or something so you can really, really tilt your head back is what we're going for. You'll take your little dropper of oil and just like 3 drops into each nostril. Hang out for a second. Let gravity just bring it down into the sinuses. Then you'll start to take some deep inhales, just rubbing the sides of the nostrils. Just getting it all in there. And that is Nasya. Some things to know, you don't want to do this right before, right after shower, right before, right after eating. You kind of want to be clean and clear when you're doing this. Also, if you're already congested, we don't need to add oil to that. So wait until things clear up before you think about the Nasya oil. But Nasya can be every day. You can do it in the morning. You can do it at night. Results may vary with doing it at night. Some folks really like it as a before bed practice. Some folks feel like it's a little too enlivening, a little too energizing. So I recommend starting with it in the morning just to try it until you get the feel for it. And then decide if, my body's actually saying I should do this before I go to bed. And experiment and see what happens, The thing about Ayurveda is we're all individual. It's not a one size fits all sort of prescription. So we kind of have to be our own guinea pigs. We kind of have to try and see, does this work for me? How does this work for me? What do I need to adjust? So Nasya oil, super great for, I would say a little bit more so of the pitta type insomnia, but would be great for both. And then back to the Abhyanga, which is where I should have put the Brahmi and Bringaraj oil under. So the Abhyanga, if you remember from the last slide, we talked about doing the feet, we talked about doing the scalp. If you also are thinking about addressing the root cause of imbalance, if we're actually trying to balance those vata and pitta buckets so they're not overflowing, then doing a full body Abhyanga is a super beautiful and amazing practice. It can be really helpful, especially for balancing vata. So same thing, you want to warm up your oil. Preferably you and the oil are warm, but at the very least, one of you needs to be warm. So most folks do this before or after a shower. If you're doing it before a shower, you warm up your oil of choice, a sunflower, a sesame, Banyan sells a daily massage oil. Once the oil is warm, long strokes on the long bones, circular strokes on the joints. You can put it literally on your entire body. And same thing, it's not a lot. Like for the whole body, maybe 2 tablespoons. You're not trying to be oily and gross. And your skin, if you need it, your skin's going to absorb this real quick. It's really great for staying hydrated, preventing infection. If you live in a dry and windy climate, it's amazing to have this barrier on your skin. Really good for your immune system, calming for your nervous system, moves lymph around, detoxifying. I go on and on and on. Abhyanga is amazing. So if we're looking at this from a preventative stance, we're thinking about doing full body. Some folks do it every day. You can do it a few times a week. You can do it once a week and let it be a special thing. If you're doing it before the shower, you've rubbed yourself in oil. Ideally, I know this can't happen every time, you would lay down for 10 or 15 minutes in a warm place, and just let that oil soak in. Take some self-care time, meditate, listen to something inspiring, read, journal. I love to listen to the binaural beats while I do that, just like laying on my bathroom floor. So good. You'll get in the shower. You won't use soap on the days that you do this. The water is just going to wash off the excess oil. So be careful getting in and out of the shower, especially if you put oil on your feet because it might be slippery. And show some love to your plumbing. So if I'm doing this regularly every other week or so, I'm pouring boiling hot water down my drain and like a 1/4 cup of Dawn dish soap just to like make sure I'm not building up oil in my pipes. And once again, you have to have a plan for your towels. Like have an Abhyanga dedicated towel, ideally. So I'd say do before the shower if you're worried about being greasy. If you're not worried about being greasy, or if you just naturally are really dry, especially this time of year, do it after your shower. After your shower, warm shower, when your pores are nice and open, you add the oil, your body just soaks it up. It's really, really nice if you run dry. And like I said, we're not doing a ton. We're not trying to be greasy gross. So take a few minutes, have an old robe or an old towel, and then just put your clothes on. Yeah, it's never been an issue for me having too much oil. Just use a little less or let the oil absorb a little longer. But one of the best ways to balance vata, such a great self-care practice. It's one of those things that Ayurveda says when you're thinking about your daily routine, when you're thinking about your self-care habits, Abhyanga is one we should definitely think about including. So it's amazing. Number 4, exercise. So this is painfully simple. Make yourself so tired, it's easier to go to sleep. You know, when you take your dog for a really, really nice run and they just come home and conk out, that's what we're going for. Obviously, you don't want to hurt yourself. Obviously, you don't want to push past the point of pain. You don't want to do too much. Don't willfully injure yourself. But just start to notice, on the days I exercise, is it easier for me to go to sleep at night? On the days I don't exercise, is it harder for me to go to sleep at night? And see if you can start to draw correlations here. Ayurveda is just cause and effect. Just a big game of detective, figuring out what is the root cause of my imbalance. So just something to play with, making yourself a little more tired. It's a little bit not traditional Ayurveda. Traditional Ayurveda would say you never exercise more than 50% of your capacity. I throw that out the window 80% of my workouts probably. So, but I also lead with pitta and really, really enjoy physicality and physical fitness. So there's that. Number 5 is blue light filters, which you've also probably heard about, but I'm just here to tell you again that they are important and that they matter, especially for our pitta folks where we're talking about being really sensitive to light. Put the blue light filters or eye protection screens or night lights or whatever they're called on all your devices. Ideally, you're winding down and getting off the devices before you go to bed. Ideally, they're not coming into the bedroom with you. I know this can't happen all the time, but just help yourself where you can. If it feels like too big of a jump to say no technology before bed, then can you at least say, okay, I'm going to turn on the blue light filter. I'm going to turn up the warm red hues. Blue light increases cortisol production in our bodies, which makes it hard to go to sleep because that also inhibits melatonin production, which our bodies do need to go to sleep. So, simple fix, not going to hurt anything. Might as well give it a shot. Number 6, this is where we go back to Ayurveda. It's based on the idea that digestion is the root of all health. An earlier, lighter dinner. Start to notice if you have a big, heavy meal late at night, the quality of your sleep afterwards. You have meat and potatoes at 8, 9, 10 o'clock. Might be a lot harder to get out of bed in the morning. You might feel groggy or swollen or puffy. You might have a thick white coating on your tongue when you wake up. If we go to bed on an empty stomach, our body is not then worried about digestion and having to manage competing priorities, can just focus on the sleep, and we're not building up undigested toxic gunk as the result of poor or incomplete digestion. So much of Ayurveda is let your body do the right things at the right times. Eating and sleeping, of course, are a huge part of that. So ideally, by Ayurvedic standards, kitchen closed by 7:30 p.m. I know that's not always possible for folks. No, that's the gold standard, but start moving in that direction. Even just moving a dinner time back 30 minutes a couple nights a week. Notice what happens. Notice if that makes a difference. Number 7, I said I'd only mention a couple herbal remedies, just the ones that I really, really like the most, and this is one of them. This is from Banyan Botanicals. This is an herbal mix that they make called I Sleep Soundly tablets. What's really nice is a lot of Ayurvedic herbal concoctions. Traditionally, you would take in water or milk or aloe or ghee, and they taste awful. So Banyan is helping to meet a modern audience by taking a lot of the herbal mixes and just putting them in tablets that you can swallow. So up to you. Some folks feel like it's really hard to remember to take herbal supplements every day. Some folks really like the convenience of that. Like I said, pick the ones out of here that resonate with you and that make the most sense. Go from there. And then, of course, I've been saying it the whole time, but address your vata or pitta imbalance. Figuring out, okay, why is that bucket overflowing and what else can I do to manage it and prevent the overflow? So maybe that looks like working with an Ayurvedic health counselor. Maybe that looks like looking at your other lifestyle factors to say, okay, why am I making this bucket overflow in the first place? Where am I increasing like? Where am I rolling the boulder down the hill in the direction that I don't actually want it to go and doesn't actually serve me? Just starting to think with our Ayurveda glasses on, how can we address that root cause? If that's something you'd like support with, I'm absolutely here to help you do that. And there will be instructions later in the slideshow of how to make that happen. So next, actually first, any questions about anything here before we move on? Okay. Oh, all good. Great. Thanks. Next. There we go. Good old circadian rhythm. Ayurveda is a huge believer that we should reattune our body to nature's rhythms. You ever notice that when you go camping, you start to get tired earlier? Without all that artificial light, when the sun goes down, you just start to trust your body's natural sleep response. That's what Ayurveda wants us to do for every part of our lives. When should we eat? When should we exercise? When should we sleep? Ayurveda has recommendations for all of this. All of this. This slide in particular, though, I got from Andrew Huberman, the Huberman Lab podcast. He's a researcher out at Stanford that is really big about the optimizing, coming up with protocols, how to get the best sleep, how to get the best workout, the best this. But it's all really science backed. It's all really data supported. He does a really good job in just really diving into the research and thoroughly vetting anything that he presents. And what I thought was really cool about his information was everything here Ayurveda agrees with. I think we're finally coming to this place where the ancient wisdom is meeting our modern lives and people are realizing, oh, yoga and meditation, there's something to those. This Ayurveda stuff, this Chinese medicine, this acupuncture, there's something to that. So even though this comes from a more modern Western source, it really is what Ayurveda would say as well about getting your circadian rhythm back on track. So the link here is to his website, which has a ton of resources and podcast episodes if you want to go listen to more. But these are just kind of some basics that I pulled that I thought would be helpful and relevant. The first, if we're trying to get our circadian rhythm back on track, that means we're following the sun. That means we need exposure to the sun. We need our body's clock to know when the sun is up and when the sun is down. And we totally disturb our body's natural clock when we use a lot of artificial light and when we don't get outside. So spending some time in the sun within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up is going to have huge effects on just pressing the reset button on that internal clock. Ideally, you wouldn't wear sunglasses. You'd get sun on your forehead, on your cheeks, on your neck, and your chest. This is where we find that the body can really say, okay, it's morning, the sun's out. Let it hit you. If it's a dark, overcast, dreary day, this is going to be more challenging to do, but ideally getting actually outside, not through a window, but just literally soaking up the sun, the best thing you can do. So many modern Americans are deficient in vitamin D, which we source from the sun. So if you are having struggles with seasonal depression, seasonal affective disorder, things like that, you can also supplement with vitamin D, but there's no substitute for the real thing, the big star in the sky. Second, this applies especially to Vata: consistency, routine, going to bed and waking up at the same times each day, giving your nervous system some predictability that it can look towards. These guide rails of your body starts to know when things will happen. We inadvertently do this a lot of time with meals. We might not even actually be hungry, but we just go to the kitchen or we go to the break room because that's just the time when we normally eat. We've become so accustomed to it, it's habitual. We want to use that habit formation loop in our favor and build a habit around this time of day. My body is used to going to sleep. So on the days when you might not be tired or might not be sleepy, you can just rely on that habit, fall into that routine. The caveat here is if you're tired, go to bed earlier, especially in the winter time. Ayurveda would say we need less sleep in the summer, more sleep in the winter. So if you get tired early, don't push through. Beware the second wind. It's fake. It doesn't serve you. You're stealing from your deep energy reserves that you don't need to steal from. The first time you get tired, trust it. Number 3, avoiding caffeine 8 to 10 hours before bed. So I thought this was an interesting way to view caffeine usage. We think about, okay, maybe I have it in the morning, Maybe I have it around lunch. Can you say at least 8 to 10 hours before bed? So if you're going to bed at 10 p.m. and you want to cut off caffeine usage at least 10 hours before that, that's noon. But having a strict cutoff time for caffeine that you can stick to. Some researchers even suggest 12 to 14 hours. I think it really depends on how sensitive you are to caffeine, how often you use it, how your body metabolizes it. I know for me personally, anything after breakfast, I'm not getting to sleep that night. I'm just that crazy neurotic about it. I don't know. My body does not take a lot of caffeine stimulus to keep me up much longer than I would like. So make your cutoff and stick to it. It's not worth it. Number 4, no big light. Lights off isn't just for kids. So going back to that number 1, we want to get sunlight on our skin first thing in the morning. We also don't want to confuse our body's circadian clock by using a lot of artificial light in the evenings. So I have my overhead light on right now because I'm doing this presentation, but if I didn't, about sundown, I'm lamps only. No more big lights. I mean, maybe if I'm like doing dishes in the kitchen or something, I'll turn it on, but that's the only big light on in the house, and then I turn it off as soon as I'm done. Get your body used to the lights inside lowering as the lights outside are lowering. You can also get sunlight as the sun's going down. Be present for the sun going down is another way you just give that actual sun cue to your skin, the easiest, best way to really reset that clock. We talked a little bit, number 5, practicing sleep hygiene. I've never quite understood why they call it sleep hygiene, but what are your habits and patterns around setting yourself up for good sleep? What's the temperature of your room? A little bit colder might actually be helpful. We talked about pittas needing it to be really dark, vatas needing it to be really quiet. Do you have blankets that you like and pillows that you like and a bed that's actually comfortable? Sometimes we don't even think about these things because we're so used to them, but how could you set your environment up well? Set your environment up for success so it's just one less variable you have to worry about. At least that one is taken care of. Number 6, technology and blue light. We've basically covered this already. Gold standard, don't bring it into the bedroom. Cut it off an hour, hour and a half before bed. Make sure you have the blue light filters on, at very least to come on at sunset, so you're not seeing a bunch of that blue light late into the evening. We talked about number 7, getting outside again around sunset, seeing that sunlight go down can be helpful. And then number 8 is more Ayurveda, having a before bed ritual. This is kind of like we talked about with number 2. This isn't going to help immediately, but just giving these guideposts to your nervous system, these places of predictability and reliability. Your body starts to get into habits and will start to see patterns and will start to say, okay, when we do the oil on the feet, maybe I just naturally start yawning. When I make the golden milk, it's like something triggers and like I just start to calm down. But this also, especially if you have anxiety and fear and racing thoughts, needs to be something that gives all of that energy someplace to go. Asking your brain to just sit down and shut up and calm down generally doesn't work. So maybe this involves a journaling practice. Maybe this involves a guided meditation. Something that I've done in the past that I've really liked is I lay in bed and I just visualize, I kind of run myself through my whole day from start to finish. Just thinking of all the things that happened, all things I did that I experienced. It's kind of just like, okay, giving it a place to go, let your brain process, and then let it out. Maybe some gentle yoga asana, maybe a restorative pose, maybe a hot bath. Whatever calls to you that feels relaxing and starts to move the energy down, gives all of this frantic, chaotic stuff a place to go that doesn't have to live in your head and keep you awake at night is really what we're going for here. And like I said, that one, it's not going to fix it tomorrow. That's like you put in the work now, you cash in on that investment 6 months down the road when you've really built this neural pathway strongly, and there's a night where you need to rely on it, and you can say, "Hey, body, I need a cue for us to wind down." You've done this thing consistently, that cue leads to that habit, then you can start the process of winding down, even if it felt impossible because you have this thing, this stimulus that triggers the habit. Any questions about anything here with circadian rhythm stuff? I feel like this is much more kind of pop culture, common stuff that you hear about sleep, but it is all good, so worthy of including. Okay, cool. So we'll start to wrap up here, but before we do, super exciting thing to offer y'all as participants of this workshop. Like I said, I just want to stand on the mountaintops and scream about how amazing Ayurveda is, and I hope you'll implement some of the things we talked about in the workshop tonight, see positive results in your own life, and start to really trust in the power of this ancient wisdom and how much it can help you with so many other aspects of your life. I don't think about doing Ayurveda now. It's just part of how I live my day to day, and I'm healthier and happier and experiencing more thrive than I honestly thought was possible. So I just want to share that with you. And as a thank you for taking the first step, wanted to offer a package of 4 sessions of working one-on-one. So that's an initial intake appointment, which is normally 75 to 90 minutes, diving into your health history, really understanding what's going on with you. What's your current state of imbalance? What's the root cause? What can we address? And then 3 follow-up sessions to tweak whatever plan we come up with, which is going to be individualized diet, lifestyle, herbal recommendations to really get to the root of what's going on. But you'll have support in those follow-up sessions. If things aren't quite working right, we can mess with them. You'll get that accountability, troubleshooting, asking questions, and just diving deeper and adding more as you're ready. So normally those 4 sessions would be $4.99, but offering $100 off if you came to the workshop, $3.99. Pretty exciting. So the way to do that is to book a discovery call, which I'll put a link to, or just email me if you're ready to go, and we will get it set up. So lots of great resources here. Wanted to have them all in one place. This is how you can reach out and get in touch. My email address, all the socials. I have lots of goodies on my YouTube channel, lots of free yoga classes, lots of here is your Ayurveda daily routine for fall. Here is how to exercise if you are a Vata type, things like that. And I've just started adding to it again, which is super exciting. So check that out. I mentioned Banyan Botanicals a lot, my favorite supplier of Ayurvedic herbs and oils and products. They're a company that I trust and love wholeheartedly. So I am an affiliate with them because it only made sense because I already told everyone about them all the time. So it only made sense for you and me to both benefit from that arrangement. So use that link. If you use code Kimber15, you get 15% off your first order. Pretty stellar. And then there's the link to schedule a discovery call if you have questions about anything that we covered today. You can use that if you just want to know more about Ayurveda in your own health, if you want to talk more about the specific issue that you're having, or if you want to know if we're a good fit for health coaching together. Let's just get on the phone and chat some more. That's the way to do it. So that's all I have, just about perfect timing. Any last minute questions that I can answer? Also know you'll get a recording of this. You will get these slides. I'll send that all out in an email, hopefully tomorrow, but possibly Thursday. And you'll also get a link to a survey for this workshop, which would be super duper helpful. If you could fill out, it's 5 questions and takes about 3 minutes, but everyone benefits from me getting good feedback, including you and me and future clients. So yeah, that's all I got. Super excited that y'all are here. Thanks to the folks that are watching the recording. Still trying to figure out what time to host these that works for everyone. Sleep apnea. Oh, interesting. Sleep apnea, I don't know as much about. I think it might be more of a kapha issue. But I know it also would depend on, is it like the type of sleep apnea where you just have too much stuff in your mouth, like your teeth get in the way and you just can't breathe? Or is it like you just stop breathing for other reasons? Um, yeah, shoot me an email. I want to look that up and talk to some colleagues and see what I can come up with. That's an interesting one that haven't done a lot with, but would like to research. That's the beauty of Ayurveda. Can always learn more and show up and help. So thanks for asking. All right. Thanks, y'all. Thanks for your time. I look forward to seeing you in other workshops, Facebook groups, Instagram, wherever we're hanging out. But I'm grateful for you all. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Have a lovely evening. I'll see y'all soon.